Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. The first trial of a bird flu vaccine for the UK begins today.
We're doing the study in turkeys, but we absolutely will be looking at all species when we consider how do we use these tools going forward.
We'll have more on that a little later. First, all week, we're talking about land use and the many demands that are being put on farmland, from growing food to producing green energy, mitigating climate change and managing flood risk. With a more volatile climate, farmers are keen to manage their water reserves. In 2024, the government and water companies announced proposals to speed up the planning process to get new reservoirs built. They say England could face water shortages within a decade without them. A 4.5 square mile reservoir has been proposed for South Oxfordshire in an area which unsurprisingly contains several farms. Marie Lennon has been to one of them.
All right, Bubbers. We're a mixed farm, beef and arable. We grow wheat, barley, rape and beans primarily.
Amanda Bosley and her family run Neville's farm, which sits on the southern edge of the proposed reservoir.
North of the railway line we have 50 acres, which they would take and use as a compound as such, so that will be taken out of farming altogether. South of the railway line then there's another about 150 acres which Thames Water have put in for basically bio-net gain land. We're not quite sure what that would look like at the minute, but yes, that would all go. We'd lose the rotation of the arable.
So if this does go ahead, what does it mean for you and your ability to farm here?
We may have to cut back on cattle numbers. We don't really know. We can't really plan because we're not really sure.
Driving here, you really get a sense that this is land that is in demand. You've got housing developments all around you, really. This railway line, which is a huge commuter line into London, and then there's this on the table. How do you feel about trying to keep hold of your land and being able to produce food here?
Yeah, we sort of are a bit of a small fish in a big pond now, and that's the frustrating thing. If we lose 50 acres of our 250-acre farm, there's not 50 acres nearby to our farm holdings we can buy and replace it.
It's Thames Water that are behind this £7.5 billion project. Leonie Dubois is their head of engagement.
Our new reservoir is essential. We know that our water resources are under pressure and we need to act now to make sure that we've got enough water for the future.
3,800 hectares of agricultural land will be used as part of this plan at a time where we have also pressures around food security. How is it justified that the project is this big?
Pretty much the whole of the southeast of England will get their water security from this reservoir. We recognise that food production is important as well, but unfortunately you can't have food production if you don't have water. And we know that we're facing a crisis to make sure that we've got enough water for the future.
The plans have been condemned by the Oxfordshire branch of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England. Their director is Lisa Warne.
It's going to really rip out the heart of the community and the farming community in a rural South Oxfordshire. And really, should we be losing such a large amount of good prime agricultural land? At the end of the day, this is farmers' livelihoods that are being ripped apart and people that have farmed there for centuries. I don't think any money can replace that.
What's the answer, though? Because we're told that we need more water storage. We haven't had a new reservoir built in this country in decades. Where should a reservoir go if it's not there?
So we believe that there's alternatives. So there is the option for a water transfer from the River Severn to come across to the southeast, and also to really get on top and tackle those leakage issues that Thames Water are well known for.
There are many demands of the land that we have here, with agriculture but also housing, renewable energy, and with huge infrastructure projects like this. Is the answer that we do just need to accept sometimes that we will lose agricultural land, otherwise big projects won't happen and we won't move forward?
What we don't have in England is the ability to bring all those sectors that you just mentioned into one room to have good discussions and make integrated decisions around our land use. That's completely lacking, and that's what we'd really like to see through the land use strategy, is because we can't afford to lose more of our countryside because the right people aren't talking to one another.
Lisa Warne there from CPRE Oxfordshire, ending that report by Marie Lennon. As the impact of the war in the Middle East starts to be felt on world markets, groups in the UK who buy fertiliser and fuel for farmers are fielding calls worried about the price rises. This time of year, when spring planting is underway, both fertiliser and fuel are in high demand. Patrick Crean is Fuels Procurement Director for the AF Group, which works with thousands of farmers across the UK.
The first and foremost worry is price. Most of the questions are price related, but some of them are also availability related. The lead times that previously we had, in certain areas we were taking the order and getting it delivered within 2 to 3 days. It appears for large parts of the country, especially here in East Anglia, we're looking at 10 days, 2 weeks to take an order and get it delivered. So it is a concern, but for now there isn't anything telling us that we think that we're going to be out of diesel or running short.
So your message to farmers who are worried is what? Don't panic?
No, don't panic. Talk to us. The likelihood is this will plateau, this will ease. Yes, the first week tends to be the worst week and we tend to see the most drama, but don't panic and let's work together and hopefully the things will sort themselves out relatively quickly.
So we have had price spikes before, last time Ukraine happened. How does this compare?
The price increase that we're seeing is far greater than what we saw with the invasion from Russia into Ukraine. We remember seeing about a 6 pence a litre increase with Russia and Ukraine. We're looking at right now, after 48 hours, for Monday and Tuesday, we've seen roughly a price increase of 16 pence a litre for red diesel and white diesel. It doesn't help that 20% of the world's crude oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So this may just take a little longer than before to settle down and to see prices fall back to potentially where they were before.
And is that price rise being passed on to consumers and to farmers now, or is there a lag?
There's a lag, but it's mainly if you've placed your order from Monday onwards, the likelihood is you're going to pay a lot more by the time it's delivered. We know for a fact that the fuel distributors in the UK, a lot of them are not offering pricing and they're just taking an order and you will be priced when it gets delivered.
So they're not locking in prices?
I'm afraid that seems to be the case at the moment. Because of the level of increases, they just aren't willing to gamble on what that price increase is going to be by the time they've physically got the product delivered. And also the fact that they may suffer availability issues at the terminal when collecting. So it's difficult for them to quote for a delivery that may not take place for potentially a couple of weeks.
With fertiliser, which could also be affected by the disruption in the Middle East, farmers often buy quite early. They will buy forward and have it in the shed already, won't they?
They will. The fertiliser market is very fluid with prices being issued daily at the moment. There are good stocks in the UK currently. So really at the moment the focus is on getting the fertiliser onto the farm and fulfilling the existing orders.
Patrick Crean there from the AF Group. For several years now, the poultry industry has been calling for an avian flu vaccine which could protect millions of birds against the disease. The virus usually strikes through the autumn and winter and forces free-range birds to be housed for several months to protect them. The disease costs the country an average of £174 million every year. 5 veterinary vaccines are approved for use across the European Union, but they haven't been approved in the UK. Today, the government's launching its first field trial of a bird flu vaccine in turkeys in England. Deputy Chief Veterinary Officer Ellie Brown told me how the trial will work.
It's a really exciting trial that's starting today. It's about 1,000 or so birds split over 2 sites, and we're looking at turkeys. We're splitting the project on farm, so we're going to really test the on-farm use of the avian influenza vaccines, but also then bring them in, of course, to controlled laboratory conditions to challenge them. So we'll also then be able to check the efficacy, the effectiveness of these vaccines in turkeys.
Why don't we use vaccines which are already available?
The challenge that we have in terms of using them, delivering them, is we need to test alongside giving the vaccines, and that makes it quite challenging to use. So it's not a straightforward decision. What we're hoping is that by targeting vaccine at the turkeys, which is a really important sector for the UK, that that might have the best possibility in the future for that sort of cost-benefit case of using these vaccines.
But then again, the EU vaccines have already been tested and they've already gone through the whole process of approval. So why don't we use those?
Yeah, so some are licensed for turkeys, but not all. Across Europe, different countries are looking at the use of these vaccines in different species. So France has been vaccinating ducks. I know other countries are testing in chickens. We're interested in turkeys as a particularly important sector for us. And there's less use and less evidence of some of these vaccines in that species. So this is a really useful study to increase our understanding of the usefulness and deliverability of these vaccines that we could then take forward with industry and the task force.
I think a lot of people in the poultry industry have been asking for vaccines for several years now. They'll be very happy you're starting a trial in turkeys, but they possibly will be scratching their heads and saying, hang on a minute, why aren't we doing what other countries do and just vaccinate our chickens?
Yeah, so we have focused on turkeys, you're right, for the reasons I've said. They're a really important sector for us, but also there's less evidence on the effectiveness of these vaccines in that species. There's emerging evidence all the time. It's a really rapidly changing environment. Some of the vaccines that we're using are pretty new. So we will be looking at the evidence from use of these vaccines in other poultry species like chickens through the task force. And we expect the task force to update their thinking and their findings and publish that this summer. So I think that will be a key part of our thinking about how we use vaccines. It's not just turkeys. We're doing the study in turkeys, but we absolutely will be looking at all species when we consider how do we use these tools going forward.
The source of avian flu is in the wild bird population, isn't it? But the vaccination is happening with kept birds. So how will that help? Because the reservoir of disease will still be there.
That's right. Infection is in the risk for our poultry sector at the moment. It's very much coming from wild birds and disease circulating in our wild birds, both migratory and resident birds. But any vaccine is looking to protect an individual animal, regardless of where that source of infection's coming from. So it will help. And as you've already said, these are licensed, authorised vaccines. So we've got good understanding in certain species that these vaccines do protect birds from avian influenza. What we're looking at is adding to that understanding of really seeing, do they also protect in turkeys, and is that useful for our turkey industry? But regardless of where that infection comes from, it would be helpful.
Deputy Chief Veterinary Officer Ellie Brown. If you'd like to comment on anything in the programme, we are farming.today@bbc.co.uk on email, and we do read all your comments. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.